I don't know why this was in my heart, but I wanted to talk about how old our kids are, the kids on the spectrum, right? Because sometimes we forget how old they really are. Take me for example. Wells is 9 years old, but oh, see my auntie's watching. Oh my goodness! So Wells is 9 years old, and sometimes I expect him to behave like a 9 year old boy, but in truth, cognitively or in his reasoning, Wells is really not 9 year old. He's probably 6 or maybe sometimes 5 years old. And so I don't know why it was put in my heart to talk about this today. Maybe there's someone that I need to bless, someone that I need to remind, that when we're dealing with our autistic children, sometimes we forget that at their core, they have autism at their core, and then we should show more grace in the things that we expect them to do, right? So for Williams, for example, I mean, if you've been watching me, you know that I know my son is autistic. I accept my son is autistic. I love my son is autistic and all of those things. And so I expect certain traits from him. But at the same time, sometimes I forget that his reasoning is really not at his age, and um, that I should be more gracious in the things that I'm expecting from him, and I should treat him like his real age. Like he's probably in his reasoning cognitively, he's probably 5 or maybe 6. For example, when now he says things like when he says something and somebody laughs, he says, "Don't laugh at me." That's something Zita did when she was 4 years old, and I would explain to Zita the difference between someone laughing at you and someone laughing because you said something funny. And I would give her examples of when she would laugh at me when I said something funny, and she kind of caught it. But Wells is doing that right now, and I'm still trying to get him to understand the difference, but he still doesn't get it. But sometimes I have to remind myself that, okay, he has autism, so some things I have to explain longer and give more examples, and then some things he's still just going to reason at that age level where his cognitive brain really is at, right? So something happened in school recently. They Wells was picked to do coding classes after school. An hour after school, they have coding classes. So they picked them in batches, and Wells was picked to do it this time. So I went to school to pick Zita up, and I took Wells to his coding class. I already talked to him about it. And I've done coding with him before, just the basic levels. I don't know any coding myself, but just the basic levels. I've done it with him before, and we did some coding classes before. So I was confident that it won't be something that would overwhelm him in the class because he knows the basics of coding. So I took him to the class, but then Wells held onto my hand and would not let go of me. He was excited to do coding class, right? Because like I said, he had done it before, but he was still holding my hand and said, "Come in the classroom with me, mommy. Come in the classroom with me, mommy." And there were other kids there. I don't even know why they paired him with other neurotypical children. But at the same time, I'm happy that they did. He had an aide with him too. So that was good. But there were other kids that were neurotypical, which is a good thing because you want your kid to see how other kids behave and see what he can imitate and what he can learn from other neurotypical children. So there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's actually a good thing. But he held onto my hand and would not let go of my hand, and so I had to follow him into the classroom, and I kept reassuring him that I'll be back to pick him up. And he said, "No, mommy, don't go, stay with me, stay with me." So it took a while for me to get him to actually sit down and let go of my hand. So eventually I left. But this is not something that a typical 9-year-old would do, right? So I left, and then when I went back, Zita and I went back to pick him. I think we were probably 7 minutes late, tops 9 minutes. It wasn't even up to 10 minutes, but we were driving into pick Wells, and I could see him with all the gestures and all of that. And his special education teacher was standing right there beside him and holding him. So when I drove in, he came in and he was just screaming and talking about how I abandoned him and how I left him and how I forgot about him. And his special ed teacher came to the window of the door. I was like, was after coding, he did great at coding, but after coding, as soon as he walked out of the door, he was very upset, and he was talking about me abandoning him and me forgetting about him and me not coming back to get him. I'm like, what? And so I turned to Wells. I'm like, Wells, I told you I was coming to get you. He said, no, you abandoned me. You left with Zita. You forgot about me. I'm like, never. I would never forget about you. I mean, I tried to keep a straight face because, I'm like, I would never forget about you. You're my one and only baby boy. Like, it's impossible. I could never forget about you. I told you I was coming back to pick you. And so he's like, no, but when I came out, I didn't see you. I'm like, because we were home. I was going to come back from home to pick you. You were there for an hour. There's no way I'm going to wait for you for an hour. So I tried to explain to him, but he was really, really frustrated. And he really, really deep down felt like I had abandoned him. That's just to give some examples. Or even when he tells me, oh, mommy, I'm thirsty. And I get him a cup of water. He's holding the water and like, can I drink it? Yes, Williams, you can drink your water. That's why I give it to you. So you can drink it. Right? So you can drink it. But anyway, those are just some examples of, what Williams does that is not his age. And, like I said, I know he's autistic. He has autistic traits, right? Like, I expect him to steam. I expect him to script and repeat and repeat and repeat words when he's having fun, and I let him do his thing because that's very stimulating for him. It regulates his whole system, and that's fine, right? So I expect him to do all that. I expect him to flap his hands, to flap sticks. I expect him to do all that. But sometimes as parents, when we give instructions, or when we sometimes we just expect certain things from them based on their age, their biological age. For William's 9-year-old, sometimes I expect certain things from him, and I forget that in his reasoning, he's probably 5 or 4 or 6. So I think I'm sharing this video to kind of remind us parents that we should extend a lot of grace when it comes to our autistic children. Sometimes I have to hold myself back, and I'm like, why would you expect him to just know and do this because he's 9 years old? Like, where does the autism fit in? We have to remind ourselves that, okay, he is autistic, so he has some drawbacks, he has some disabilities. I have to remind myself sometimes, and I feel like some of you have to be reminded sometimes, and that's why I'm sharing this video. So if there's ever a time that you catch yourself expecting your autistic child to be a certain way based on their age, remind yourself that really, really deep down in their brains, in their reasoning, cognitively, they are probably 4 years less than what they actually are. And so give them that grace and give them that support and comfort, and teach them in a way that you would teach that age that they really, really are. Okay, hence the title of this video. How old is your autistic child really? Okay, so if you're watching this online live and you want a free waist trainer, go ahead and leave me a comment. Tell me you want it. Some of you don't want it. Some of you already snatched it. You don't need it. But if you need it, I have them in sizes: small, extra small, large, extra large, medium. I wear medium just for reference. So if you're watching this live and you want one, go ahead and leave me a comment and tell me that you want one, and I will ship it to you. Okay, so I think that's it for this video. So thank you to everyone who tuned in. I see Dorothy, my aunt, that's my aunt. I see Michelle. Victoria is my niece. Thank you, Victoria. And April, thank you guys for watching. And please share this if you think this will bless someone. And of course, if you're watching this on replay, you don't get a waist trainer. So just FYI. All right. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. And I will see you next time. Bye.